I'm sure if you've ever played Half-Life 2, then you may have come across these red oil barrels. They're really fun because when you shoot them, they explode. These explosive barrels, or drums, as they are called in the game files, are very common throughout Half-Life 2. But did you know there were barrels in Half-Life 2 that you never got to shoot at and explode? That's because there are oil barrels in Half-Life 2 that were never actually included in the final game. These are the secret explosive barrels of Half-Life 2. There are a few ways we can find these secret barrels, such as opening up the levels in the Hammer Level Editor. Hammer Editor is the tool Valve Software used to make the levels for all of their famous games such as Half-Life 2, Portal 2, Left 4 Dead 2, Dota 2, and Counter-Strike 2. Inside of Hammer Editor, there is a feature called Viz Groups, which allows the level designer to group objects together under a given name. These Viz Groups can then be enabled or disabled at the level designer's will. If a Viz Group is disabled, the objects from that group will be hidden and not included in the final game level. Half-Life 2's levels, or maps as they are commonly called, all have many different Viz Groups, some containing secret oil barrels that no one has ever seen before now. The first level in Half-Life 2 with a hidden barrel is D1 Train Station 06, located right before the end of the level. This secret barrel would have been the first appearance of an exploding barrel in Half-Life 2, but because it was removed, you don't get to see an explosive barrel till later in the next level, D1 Canals 01. This Viz group doesn't contain just the barrel though. It also contains special logic which tells the Metro Cops pursuing the player to specifically shoot at the barrel, causing it to catch on fire and explode. If I run the map with this Viz group enabled, you can see this in action. It's a mystery as to why Valve removed this from the final game. Maybe they were worried that the player might die too easily if near the barrel when it explodes. It isn't until much later in Half-Life 2, on the map D1 Canals 07, that there's another secret oil barrel hidden in a Viz group. This time the barrel is part of the Viz group called Grenade Puzzle. This puzzle features a door blocked by a desk next to an explosive barrel. The player would have probably had to use a grenade in some way to unblock the door, but this was again removed for some unknown reason. It may have been removed because the Combine soldier in the next room over would not have been able to get back into the garage area if the door was barricaded, so it wouldn't have made any sense from a realism standpoint. In the level right after this one, there are more secret oil barrels. Normally this map, D1 Canals 08, doesn't have any barrels at all. But there are actually 3 barrels hidden inside of the Viz groups. One group named Large Pier has 2 hidden explosive barrels. The third explosive barrel is in a group named Far Pier Cop, which is not too far away from the first 2 exploding barrels. The Pier Cop Viz group contains a scripted sequence which causes a Metro Cop to run out to the end of the pier. These 2 groups were probably removed because the player can't actually access these areas. But nobody actually knows why Valve didn't put these in the final game. I'm going to skip a few levels with secret barrels so I can save the best for last. The next level I'll be covering is D2 Coast 11, which is the last level in Half-Life 2 that has explosive barrels in a disabled Viz group. The 3 secret barrels in this level are hidden inside a Viz group called Old Antlion Guard Area. This area looks like it would have had a lot more destructible rocks than in the final game. You'll notice there's already a lot of explosive barrels in this area to begin with, so Valve likely removed these 3 from Half-Life 2 because it would have made the fight with the Antlion Guard too easy. As a side note, if you've watched my Half-Life 2 is the best game ever made video, you may remember this part of the video.
How'd you get up there? Hey, there's no stairs, how'd you get up there?
Well, as it turns out, there is actually a Viz group here called Ladder to Turret, but it is hidden in the final release of Half-Life 2. Why would Valve remove this important piece of world building and realism? In my opinion, the lack of a ladder here completely breaks the immersion of the game. Now it's time for the big one, the level in Half-Life 2 with the largest number of secret barrels. D1 Canals 11, which is named after the fact that it contains 11 explosive barrels. Did you know that there are actually 6 secret barrels hidden inside of Viz groups in this map? 3 of these barrels are hidden in a Viz group called Breakable Bridge. This bridge still exists in Half-Life 2, but is no longer breakable, and nobody knows why Valve removed this feature. Two more barrels are hidden under the breakable bridge as well, but these are inside of a Viz group called Exit Perf Pass. Finally, the 6th and last barrel hidden inside a Viz group appears slightly earlier in the level during the Combine ambush segment. This one is part of the Ambush Perf Pass group. This last barrel is very close to another one that does appear in the final game, so it makes sense that the developers would remove this one. That is all for barrels hidden inside of Viz groups in Half-Life 2, but I am not done. There are 2 more important secret barrels in Half-Life 2 that I have to go over, one of which is also in this same level. I'm sure the true Half-Life 2 oil barrel experts in the audience will have noticed that despite D1 Canals 11 being named after the fact that it contains 11 explosive barrels, there are only 10 explosive barrels to explode in the level. It turns out that Valve hid the 11th barrel inside an inaccessible area of the map. You normally cannot see it or interact with it in the game, but it is actually there. You can see this secret barrel and hammer hidden behind a wall next to this Metro Cop and stack of tires. Normally things like this would cause a map to leak. A leak is a technical mapper term for an error that stops the map from compiling. This means the map will not run in Half-Life 2. And these leaks can sometimes happen when you have an object outside of the level like this. But why doesn't this barrel cause a leak? Well, just by moving a little further, you will see that this barrel is not actually outside of the level, but is embedded into the wall of the tunnel. This means that the explosive barrel is still technically inside of the level, so the map does not leak, and can be ran normally. The barrel is actually there in the game, but there is no way to normally interact with it, and it is invisible. But I can prove that the barrel really is there by teleporting out of bounds to the barrel's location. Next, I can run a special console command that lets me give objects a unique name. I'll call this one Secret Barrel. When I run this command, you'll see the console reports back, set the name of prop physics to Secret Barrel. That prop physics is actually the explosive barrel itself. Now that I have given the barrel a unique name, I can fully control it. But to keep things simple, I will just ignite the barrel, using another command. And eventually, like all explosive barrels do, it will explode. This is actually the first ever recorded video of this specific barrel exploding in Half-Life 2. I am likely the first one to ever explode this barrel since the game's release over 20 years ago. Nobody knows why Valve chose to put this barrel in the wall here, but to be honest, this barrel is actually quite unsettling. To finish up the video, I have one more secret barrel to talk about, this time on the map D2 Coast 08, otherwise known as the Bridge Level. Most Half-Life 2 players will probably assume there is only one barrel in this map, located in this area below the Combine control room. The real barrel experts will have likely noticed the second barrel in the level, somewhere underneath the bridge, usually floating in the water. This second barrel is interesting because it actually spawns very high up in the air and falls to the ground when the map is loaded, so its location is always randomized. However, did you know there is actually a third barrel hidden in this level? It's right here. However, this barrel is invisible. Again, this is probably the first time anyone has ever exploded this specific barrel. That's 2 Half-Life 2 firsts in a single video. Make sure you thumbs up the video for this never-before-seen Half-Life 2 content. Looking at this barrel and hammer, you can see that the fade distance is set really low. This is likely due to a mistake by someone at Valve, and simply no one ever noticed it in the last 20 years that the game has been around. Even after the Half-Life 2 Anniversary update, which fixed tons of small bugs, this exploding barrel remains invisible. Valve, please fix. You can actually see the barrel in the game if you pause the physics and teleport to the exact position of the barrel. When looking up, you can just barely see the ridge of the barrel above you, but moving any direction will cause it to fade away. I can use the same console commands I used for the previous secret barrel to set the name of this one and also ignite it. Because I had to pause the physics of the barrel so it wouldn't fall into the water, you can see the debris are stuck in one spot. So, those were all of the secret explosive barrels in Half-Life 2. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and consider joining my channel members or donate to me on Ko-Fi, and I'll be back next week with a brand new video.